powering them all?
The chamber pressure looks good. Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic.
Water towers can fly!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight down, lead off. Bring in, lead off. Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, y'all. You know the drill. We're going fast here today because it looks like once again Starship S20 is on the move. Starship Prototype S20, actually. You can tell it's a prototype because it doesn't have all the tiles yet. Amongst other things, looks like it's going to be rolling out to the test area for some potential cryo testing. So let me know that you can hear me over there in chat 5x5. It's a commentated stream from NASASpaceflight. We've got the usual suspects here to talk about this rollout today. My name's John Galloway with NASASpaceflight. Thank you so much for joining us and popping over if you came from a notification or something like that, or you're just waiting for us because you were hanging out with Starbase Live. But it looks like we are good on audio. Y'all should see the video. That's Mars Cam, S20 going around the mid-bay there is the shorter building. And let's see who else we have on comms today. I believe with me, we should have Chris Gebhardt. Chris, we got you on?
You do between bouts of rain bands. You do.
Oh, geez, you getting hit by that, what is it, tropical depression still? What is coming up that way?
I'm not sure if it's depressed or if it's still or if it's a storm again, but yeah, rain bands
Out there in
from
Florida.
Fred. Yes.
Good times. Well, stay safe out there, Chris, and thanks for joining us over here. Also, out in the field today, we've got Thomas Burghardt. Thomas is actually across the street from the production side, aren't you, Thomas? Thomas may be setting up a camera or something like that.
Hello, guys. I'm here.
You can tell that he's
I'm
across
not
from.
talking much.
Okay, all good. It sounds like you can hear the SPMT on his microphone. So, anyways, Thomas is out there in the field, and then also I think Michael's helping out as well in the background. Not sure if he's going to be on comms today, but I
Hi.
see some things. There we go. He said hi. I see some things changing on the screen, so that tells me that Michael is also on the case. So, folks, like we said, this is Starship Prototype S20, and it is currently leaving the production site, which is strange because it just made it back to the production site, right, Chris?
I mean, yes. I don't even remember how many days ago that was because it seemed like 2.
If they
But
need practice rolling, I guess they're getting their rolling practice, huh?
yeah, right, right. I mean, the SPMTs are definitely getting their workout, right? Like, if you take a Starship and a booster to the pad twice a week, like, is that a good workout regime? 4 times, hit in the gym? You know, I don't know. But yeah, that could be. But yeah, no. I mean, very quickly, it was. Man, was it just last Friday, DOS, or last Thursday that they stacked them? They stacked Ship 20 on top of Booster 4, only for like an hour, and then lowered it back down to the ground because of wind constraints. Just a very quick fit check, and now it is. And now it is on its way back to the yeah, back to the launch site
Yeah.
for some testing. Thomas was telling us earlier before we went on air that the speakers in and around Starbase announced that it was going to the cryo test stand, which is the former suborbital launch site B, is where this one is going. So not a surprise, I guess, right? Because we knew there had to be more testing. We knew there were other campaigns that these vehicles were going to be put through. So
Yep.
I think the big surprise was, oh, it's going today. Yes,
I
mark your
figured
calendars.
I figured it'd be early next week, but Elon's out there cracking the whip. It sounds like this. It's not a surprise to anyone, right?
Exactly.
We knew that the entire stack was not flight ready. I know a ton of people got really, really excited, like, "Oh, it's totally stacked. It's launching in 3 days." And oh, all these Raptors installed, and oh, look at this, it's ready to go. And we sort of knew that wasn't really the case. That there was going to be a lot of testing. I mean, we need static fires of multiple engines. We haven't seen cryo testing. We saw the fitment issues with those tiles that they were installing. Clearly something that they can get worked out, right? But they still have a ways to go before they yeet this thing into orbit. Can I say that?
Yes.
I think I can say that.
Yeah, I think SpaceX would approve of yeeting it into orbit.
Yeeting it
Yes.
to orbit. Nice. All right. So, again, folks, if you're joining us, the NASA spaceflight crew is here. It is actually road closed out there at Starbase right now. And you can see here on Marscam, Ship 20, S20, Starship Prototype 20, S20, whichever way you're supposed to say it, is actually on Highway 4. The road is closed per Thomas out there. He's right there next to Starship taking photos. We don't have a feed from Thomas. The feed is with Mary on the other end, and it is going to make its way out to the test site. So that's our thing. We're going to be doing questions and commentary and Q&A and changing angles and all that sort of stuff. I got all sorts of robots pointed at this today. We have the really long shot there as well, doing a cool time lapse with the bay in the front, and then we've got the close in. We'll track it because it's going to go right by our camera positions out there on Highway 4, and probably about an hour and a half, I think, is about the time that it normally takes, barring no stops or anything like that. I think that's right, Chris? About an hour and a
It,
half?
it seems like that, yeah.
Yeah.
If there are no stops, like you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see, and we're here live. So if you have questions for us, tag us in chat at NASA Spaceflight. Clearly, there are some Elon tweets that we can be talking about. Oh, geez.
We've already got a few questions.
Yeah. So if you want to roll with it, hey, same thing with super chats, y'all. If you do a membership or a super chat, we read those out on occasion just to thank y'all for the support. But let's grab some of those questions there, Chris.
Yeah. First off, Dave Hagan, thank you so much for the new membership. Right off the bat, we had a new membership there. So just wanted to say thank you to Dave there for that continuing support. But here is one of the questions from Preslav, who's wondering why did they remove the engines from Booster 4? Which is a good question. So on a lot of Booster 4 as engines, you could see that all of the engines had not really been fired, right? Like the nozzles were very clean. Based on how quickly they threw them all in there, those weren't fully integrated engines, right? Like they were on there for
Too
what they
clean.
needed to be for. Say what,
Yeah,
Doss?
they were too clean. They were too clean.
Yes,
Yeah.
they were too clean. I mean, some of them hadn't been fired. Especially yet, there's still some and there's still some work to do on those. They were for fit checks, they were for everything that they needed to do, getting it out to the launch pad and seeing how that all worked in that particular configuration, but they weren't for test campaigns. So they had to remove all of them, or they had to remove some of them, all of them, and they will either be, and then we'll see what the test campaign is for all of them. I mean, some of them had clearly been fired. Whether or not those were the engines they want for flight, we'll have to see. A lot can change in the test campaigns as we move toward the orbital flight, and as the newer engines come along, we'll have to wait and see what they opt for here for the booster. But yeah, they came off for additional checks, additional work on the booster, and stuff like that.
Good deal.
Uh, Thomas Anfang with a super chat support saying, "I regret to inform you that Starbase isn't real." Uh, Yeah, I woke up to that message today too. If Thomas were on comms, I'd love to know what it's like, and Mary too. I'd love to know what it's like being at and living at a place that doesn't exist.
It's crazy, Chris. I don't even know what's real anymore.
I know, I know. I mean, you're clearly just looking at a field in the ocean, aren't you, Thomas? This is all just CGI projection brought to you by NASA Spaceflight and SpaceX.
You don't see any
Anyway,
rockets or anything out there, do you, Thomas? Is
yeah.
there like a
uh,
launch stand or
I see some grain silos,
grain silos? Ah, okay. So
Whoa.
maybe a bit of a
a couple water
miscommunication.
towers.
Mhm. Yes. Anyway, Samuel Watson saying, I'm going to be down in South Padre on September 10th. Any guess on what will be on the test site? No, I have no guess as to what will be on the test
Sep-
site on September
September
10th.
10th? Gee, that's
I
like
mean,
a month
you might,
away.
yeah, a month away. I know. I mean, I understand why you're asking. There's definitely going to be something to see when you're down there. Exactly what we don't know yet. A month ahead of time. I mean, had you asked us yesterday if Ship 20 when Ship 20 was going back to the launch site, we might have said soon, but I don't think any of us would have said, "Oh yeah, tomorrow morning." You know,
Yeah. For
I mean,
context, I'm planning to be here till tomorrow, and I was not expecting anything significant to really roll out while I was here.
right.
So you never know.
Right, exactly. But yeah, there'll definitely be something there for you to see, and definitely take that hour from South Padre. It's what, about an hour ish down through Brownsville and over into do Starbase. There we go. There was the word I couldn't pull from my head. So yeah, so definitely make that hour-long drive and go see it. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, like,
Yeah.
here's how you find out. Samuel Watson, here's how you find out what's going to be on the test site on September 10th. You drive to the test site on September 10th and you look around. That's the best way to figure out what you're going to be able to see. You never know with SpaceX.
Very, very much so. And here's a question that I'm sure many, many, many are asking, but Marcus, you asked it first. So Marcus, this is the one I'm going to show on screen. What are your thoughts on Elon's tweet concerning catching ship? Um,
Jeez.
I'm not overly surprised. He had kind of alluded to this before, in a way about, maybe ship will just be caught. This is before it was called ship when it was still Starship. But oh, maybe it'll be caught by the tower. And I know we were all like, "What? That's crazy. How does it land on Mars? If it's designed to be caught by the tower and blah 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 blah." And honestly, I think what a lot of people overlook is that maybe specific variants can have the aero surfaces that would be needed for a Mars landing at first, just like the lunar variant of Starship will need lunar landing legs, right? But maybe Earthbound, like the tankers and other payload versions of Starship, and maybe they won't have the aero surfaces. Maybe they'll just have the catch systems and maybe they won't have legs. Maybe they'll have that. Maybe they still need the aero surfaces, and there's a way to do the catch system with them, or not. Elon did have some interesting thing that he was talking about in terms of his response to Blue Origin, where he started talking about without flaps, without legs, without a whole bunch of things, the ships can be lighter, which means they can carry more mass. And he was talking about like 150 metric ton payload capacity now instead of 100.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously the design is changing. But I think part of the like head scratching, well, wait a minute, but isn't it supposed to land on Mars? Is just like, yeah, there will be different variants of these vehicles, right? Some that would have legs that might be needed for things like that on Mars and landing on the moon. And then there might be variants that forego the flaps, like the lunar starships don't have flaps because they're not needed to land on the moon. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to the different variants that arise and what that final catch arm system is actually going to look like and how it will work. Because if you have to have error surfaces, maybe you can't be caught. If you don't have error surfaces, maybe you can. Maybe there's a way to do both. It's one of those things that until Elon sort of talks a little bit more about how that works on the ship side, it's down to educated conjecture. But yeah, definitely interesting, but not something that's a huge surprise, at least from my point of view. Das, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Well, I was going to make a joke about the chicken and the egg. And if you need a tower on Mars to catch the Starship, then you have to get Frankencrane to Mars first. And if you need Starship to actually transport Frankencrane to Mars so that you could build a tower so that you can catch the Starship, how do you land the Starship that has Frankencrane inside of it? But that all gets a little convoluted, and I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Right?
I think you're right that there'll be different variants, and Elon saying, like a tanker being caught by the tower versus something that's going all the way to Mars versus something that's been space telescope versus the lunar variant versus all the different options. It is very much a KSP sort of setup where you have, oh, I've built my basic ship and now I'm going to add this to it, then I'm going to change this, then I'm going to do that. It seems like he's been playing some Kerbal lately, so I'm sure we'll continue to see the ideas evolve, and certainly it's something they've thought through. My big concern with that, and I guess which is more concerning or which is more difficult, landing a starship with legs or catching a starship with the tower. If you have to do a lot of starship launches in a hurry and you're trying to refuel something, how much more risky is it to catch it with the tower versus land it on the landing legs? Maybe the risk is the same either way. It seems like the landing pad would be easier to clean up a nerf like a grenaded starship than something that hits right next to the tower. You know what I mean?
I do. I do,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, all of this is very, very fascinating
Yeah.
in
And
a
it's
way for
it's
how it's gonna play out, yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit of a cheeky sort of joke, right? Like, oh, well, it's complicated and risky, et cetera, high risk. Um, but my thing, the way that I keep trying to think about this is, we need to figure this sort of stuff out. It's sort of like what Elon was telling Tim up there on the orbital launch table.
Mhm.
We need to figure it out. Like, we can't just say, well, that's pretty risky. Let's hang out for 5 more years, 10 more years, and just do other things. Like, at some point we sort of need this giant leap again, right?
Yes.
And being able to rapidly reuse a starship, or being able to catch a starship, or being able to refuel 10 flights or 16 flights or 20 flights, like build a depot in space that has fuel, like all of those things, while they may be risky, they're important. Like, we could use that. You know what I mean? So, ay, ay,
We
ay.
well, we could, and I think the last thing I'll sort of, like, tangentially say to the whole, like, there's risk, like, it's
Yeah.
complex and it's risk. I mean, it is, don't get me wrong, I mean, there is complexity here, there is risk in every system. However, I'll point out that right now, Blue Origin can talk about risk all they want because they don't have a rocket and they don't have a system. So there's no risk to it right now. But as soon as they have a system and as soon as they have a rocket, there's going to be risk, there's going to be complexity. And let me also point out theirs is not a single launch concept like they would like you to gloss over
It's three
either.
launches instead of 16, isn't it?
It's 3 under the current architecture if the rockets and the engines that are envisioned to actually launch those things come to
Ah,
fruition,
yes.
which is another part of their little problem that they don't really want to talk about in those infographics is where are the engines to launch the national team system. But that's we're gonna go on to happier things.
Yeah. Whole
Uh,
whole other thing, because
yeah,
here Starship S-20, which apparently doesn't
yes,
exist, is rolling out
right,
at Starbase, which also is just like, if you look on a map, it just say here be dragons. Like, clearly nothing's there yet.
yes, here
And
be dragons.
here be, oh, I guess here be raptors, it should probably say, but that would be
Yes.
too accurate. It is rolling out. Our understanding is it's going back to the test site. The TPS is not finished yet, but it looks
No.
like they're going to be doing some cryo
The
testing. And
stream is down, Doss. Now it's back.
what did it just hiccup?
Yes, for the second time in about 3 minutes. It keeps hiccuping.
Okay, not seeing any issues on our end, and YouTube is not complaining. Stream Health says no, actually, no, it's not. Now it's just popped an error just 1 minute ago. All right.
Okay. Well, hello everyone.
Yeah, not I'm not seeing any issue from our servers, but I just got a warning from YouTube. So we will see what we can do here.
While DOS is looking at that, and as it's going by, you can see a Starship and its multi-technicolored TPS system. As it rolls by here, and we are getting a lot of questions in chat. I'm going to choose the first one that I saw here, which was Flavio. But a lot of people are asking this one: what is up with the multicolored TPS tiles? What are those marks? What are they doing with it? So usually in TPS investigations like that, the multicolored marks like this indicate areas of damage and either repair or replace. It's going back out to the cryogenic launch site. They could also be looking at them and flagging them to see, hey, if this is damaged and we put it through a cryo cycle, what does that damage look like? They could just be replacing them out at the launch pad before they do the cryo tests. But your eyes are also not deceiving you. We're getting a lot of other questions too about wait. I don't think the thermal protection system is fully complete yet. It's not. It's not yet. There are still gaps within it. As you can see. But those are those little Technicolor markings on there. We saw them really start that investigation after they got it out there, after the transport to and from the launch site. And now we can see it on its way back to the launch site. But yeah, that's what's happening there with those particular tiles. Ultima, thanks for the new membership or the upgrade there. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, Chris,
Uh,
I'm
yep,
I'm
go
I'm
ahead.
working. I know that we're having some sort of hiccup, but I don't
Okay.
see the issue here. So I'm trying to figure out, but I know that some people are going to get buffering and refreshing and stuff like that right now. So
Yeah.
we're having a look at that.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Again, we're not seeing, for those of you who are with us, we're not seeing anything on our end for the problem, but yeah, yeah, we are looking at it and are monitoring it. Musical Wolf is saying it looks like a Christmas tree. Are they rolling out with the world's largest Christmas tree since its heat shield tiles are missing? Yes. Eric Jacobson also asking, are there reasonable alternatives to Hohmann transfer for sending Starship to Mars more often? Well, so this is where like more propellant can sometimes come in handy because the more propellant you have, the more you can kind of shave some time off of your trip because you can use some of that extra propellant to slow down a little bit when you get within range to make sure that you're entering the atmosphere at the correct velocities and everything that your vehicle can maintain and survive. I know at one point Elon was sort of talking about Starship being able to do the transits within about 3 months, which is an improvement over some of the current trajectories that are used that can take upwards of 6 to 9 months to achieve, depending on where exactly Earth and Mars are in their transfer. And obviously, that would still play a role exactly where the two planets are in the respective transfer windows. But that is what we have heard from Elon. I'm interested to know where the system currently resides in that capability because it has been a little while since he's mentioned a timeline for the transfer. But yeah, definitely interested in that. But that is what the current sort of thought is right now. And Bipole88 is saying, what's the point of a fuel propellant depot if it doesn't change the delta V required to get a spacecraft to a particular destination in the solar system? Or to a particular place. Well, the point of the propellant fuel depot is to allow you to have enough propellant in your tanks so that the engines can burn for the required delta V change to get your payload where it needs to go. If it takes, I'm just going to pull a number completely out of my hat here. Let's say when you are in low Earth orbit, it takes 3.5 kilometers per second of delta V to make the transfer window to your destination, but you only have enough propellant left for 1 kilometer of delta V change. Well, you need the propellant depot in order to give yourself the remaining propellant in order to have enough so that your engines can burn for these full 3.5 or have enough propellant for 3.5 kilometers of delta V change required for your particular mission, plus a little bit of extra because you always want some extra as you go. But that would be the main reason for the propellant fuel depot. Otherwise, you would have to drastically reduce the payload that you could carry in order to meet whatever propellant margins would be left um, in the stage when it gets to orbit. If you sort of think about missions like that we've seen with the Falcon Heavy, one of the Falcon Heavy's second mission in its first operational flight launched the Arabsat 6A telecommunication satellite, which was light enough to actually be launched on a Falcon 9 rocket into a geostationary transfer orbit. But sometimes satellite companies want these vehicles to be delivered into higher orbits so that the satellites don't have to do a lot of the orbit raising. Sometimes they want to be taken directly to geostationary orbit. And in order to do that, you have to leave more propellant in the second stage. So you switch from a Falcon 9 to a Falcon Heavy, and that allows your propellant reserve in the second stage to be higher to give you the required delta V needed to get to that higher orbit. Long way of saying it comes down to the propellant on that one, but I hope that makes sense, Bible.
Not to
And
come around the curve here, Chris.
it is, yes. But thank you so much for that question, Bible. Very, very much. And if you are just joining us, oh, look at that shot! Look at that shot! The Starship in the upper part of its Technicolor thermal coat. That's what I'm calling it
Nice.
today. Yes, and a nice pan down where you can see some of those markings on the TPS and some of the material underneath that they are adhered to as well. Looking good, but yeah,
What's
you can see still some of it's still missing. Yeah.
yeah. It looks like Elon went out there and put post-it notes on the side of S20, and it's like list of things to be completed on S20 before orbital flight.
Yes, exactly, right?
They look
Oh,
like
look at
post-it
that
notes. They
beautiful
really do.
pan. Look at that beautiful track. Is that Michael doing the track in the background or you,
I
DOS?
got it. That's me right
You
now.
got that's you. Awesome
Yeah,
track. Awesome track there.
just having a look. What's
Looky
going on?
there.
It's gonna get even closer. I
Um,
mean, it's gonna go right past us, y'all. So,
yeah, and a question from Bob and Michelle Murray asking, didn't Michael say that the thrust rams were removed from the cryogenic stand? Is that true?
late last night, yeah, saw him
Late
going
last
by on the
night.
highway.
So then here's my question. If the thrust rams were removed, how many Raptors are inside Ship 20?
I
Or
I
do we
thought we.
not know?
There are
w-
0 Raptors in ship 20.
There we go.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
Thomas. There are 0 Raptors in Ship 20, Leon. So yeah, we did see the thrust rams removed from suborbital pad B, now called the what is it called now? The cryo test stand?
They said cryo test stand or cryo test site, I think is what it
A cryo
was.
test site. Okay. Okay. See, the suborbital site might have been renamed now. We'll have to
It's
they,
true.
they like to change the names of things. Either that or they've installed some sort of Klingon or Romulan cloaking device and a cryo stand will emerge when ship 20 arrives. But what's the thing? They cannot fire when they're cloaked, so it's safe.
Oh,
So
jeez.
anyway, for all
Nice,
of
Chris.
you who
Nice.
understood that reference, moving on for the rest of you who didn't. Um, Gautam with a good point here, saying won't saying most landings of starships will be on Earth. Especially will be on Earth itself for the tankers, which is a good point. So if the tankers can be caught by the arms, maybe that lowers turnaround time and stuff like that as well. For what we were talking about earlier for the refueling concept for the HLS, the Human Landing System for NASA's Artemis program. Dalton with a great question here. Did we ever find out what happened to SN11? It blew up in midair, and that's about all I've ever heard of it. How about you, Das?
I thought there were some comments from Elon about a problem with one of the engines sort of cascading into a much bigger problem.
That's kind
Um,
of what I remember too, but I don't
yeah.
remember anything more. I personally, I don't remember anything more after that. Do
Yeah,
you?
the exact problem. I don't know that he ever came back and told anybody the exact problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Here's a good question from Sananji, asking, will they do a high altitude test? This is a good question. Elon had sort of hinted that SN16 might do this hypersonic test flight, but we haven't heard anything about that. S20, we haven't heard anything um, really with S20 other than other than it's the one that they really want to be the orbital vehicle. Haven't heard of any other plans to do anything other than that
Yeah.
personally with it. Now plans could change, but right now it definitely looks, and the current plan is still for ship 4. Sorry, booster 4 and ship 20 to be the duo that does the first orbital attempt. Which I
And Chris,
guess
I'm
you could call a high altitude test, but technically an orbital test. Yes.
thanks for Chris. Thanks for doing all the questions and stuff here. I am driving the robots and changing the
Ah,
scenes and actively tracking on Mars Cam. I'm juggling a lot right now, so thank you for the help.
and actually, Michael in our back channel confirming that with this is for the question about SN11. Here it was a fuel leak damaged an avionics cable and caused a hard start on the Raptors, which caused a rapid unscheduled disassembly. So there you go. We do know what happened on SN11.
There you go.
Fuel leak damaged an avionics cable and caused a hard start, which caused a RUD or rapid unscheduled disassembly. There
That'll
you go.
do it.
See, ask and ye shall receive. So yes.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see. Oh, SFS Inverted wants to know: are they going to do test campaigns for every single Starship vehicle in the future before launch? Ooh, a question about every single vehicle in perpetuity into the future? I can't answer that because we don't know how things will change. They are hoping, though, definitely to get this system, to a point where, um, it's very reliable in that regard. Will Raptors be fired beforehand? Will everything undergo this type of cryogenic testing? I mean, airplanes go through testing before they're delivered and before they carry, paying passengers for the first times and things like that. But it's really hard to answer those questions about like, will every single starship in the future have to do this before launch? There's just honestly no way to know that as the systems continue to mature and develop. Yeah. I mean, some kind of testing, yes, but exactly what kind, we don't know. And the reason I don't want to just end that question there because that's a little infuriating to not answer it. But you know, if you look at the Falcon 9s, right? If you were to have asked early on in the Falcon 9 program, will they always static fire a Falcon 9? Maybe we would have said yes, probably may have hedged to, well, I don't know. And now we see that they don't always static fire a Falcon 9. So, things change. So it's a little, it's hard to talk about things with that much certainty forever into the future.
Yeah, it really
Uh,
is.
yeah, it really is. And Das, I know we're doing a good tracking shot here, but wondering if the rest of the robot army can help you see if there is a crane already ready. Those are the correct sequence of words. Already ready at Pad B or the cryo test facility
That is a
to
good
lift the ship.
question. Give me just a second
Will
while
do.
I'm
I'll
doing
grab another
this.
question. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think so, no.
Okay, there we go. We don't know yet. Basile, I think is your name. I'm gonna keep that in the queue though, and when we've got a different camera angle, we'll take a look. But we don't think so on that.
I'm doing some gratuitous zoom up the side of it
Yes,
here, like all
which
the
we don't
details
want
of the
to.
yeah, the raceway and stuff like that is what I'm looking at here. So,
Yeah. Austin wondering when they will begin ground testing for Ship 20. Will they begin as early as this afternoon? Don't believe it'll be this early as afternoon. Although, if you wanted to sort of get cheeky, you could say that the rollout is also a test.
There you
Um,
go.
so but I know it's not what you mean. No, it'll take them a couple days to get it onto the stand to get it hooked up. And remember too that usually any type of testing that would require road closures usually does not occur over a weekend. And of course, today is Friday, so we're heading into a weekend, and they usually don't like to do testing that involves road closures over the weekend. But I'm going to leave the question at that because they have not said what their current timeline targets are for Ship 20's testing.
Chris, I let
Except
go of the
except that we know that Elon wants them both out by Monday per a tweet, I believe. He said something about, right?
yeah, I think so. I let go of the track there, and you
Yeah.
could see how fast it was moving. It wasn't really
Yeah.
obvious how fast that thing was moving until I let go of the track. But let's look down at the SPMT, see if we can spot anything. I don't think there's any Raptors in the bottom of it.
Do the
Like,
SPMTs have names?
I don't think so.
Oh
I
dear.
don't know if they have names. Yeah.
I mean, the crawlers are nicknamed Hans and Franz. These should get
Jeez.
nicknames. I'm not kidding either. They actually are. Um, alrighty, let's head back over here to some questions. Um, do you think they'll put an arrow cover over the raceway like they do with Falcon 9? I mean, I would kind of think they'd have to protect some of those external things from the airstream, right, Doss? I mean,
Yes. I mean, I would think so. I think we're going to see
right?
some sort of protection on the bottom down there, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And Aiden wanting to know why are they rolling out, which is a good question. And yeah, for those of you, for the nearly 10,000 of you who are watching, I know we a lot of you have just joined over the last few minutes. This is Ship 20 rolling back out to the launch site at Starbase in Boca Chica, Texas. If you think you're experiencing deja vu that you remember this rolling out last week, you are correct. It did roll out last week and was stacked and destacked. rolled back for some work, and now is going back out to the pad. It's not going to the orbital launch site, though. It is going to what was well, it's going to what we've been calling suborbital pad B, which, according to Thomas and Mary, was announced earlier this morning as having the new name of Cryo Test Site. So that might be what the suborbital location, or at least suborbital pad B is. And Michael did note that we did see them remove the thrust rams from that pad and test stand overnight as well. So Ship 20 is definitely going there as the cameras are zooming in and attempting to focus.
It's true. It's
Focus!
true. It's true. I'm trying.
Focus!
Sorry. I wanted to see the tiles, but the sun is tough and it's moving fast.
Yes, it is, and you can see the tile, all the thermal protection system tiles there with the little indicators, which we believe, if it follows other patterns, are about their health,
Wow.
and different things that they might be marking those tiles for either repair or replacement, or to see how they hold up during the upcoming battery of tests if they do not replace them but leave some damaged ones on there to see how they hold up.
Some say
Um,
okay on them. Nice.
yeah, right. Yeah, you can kind of see what. Ooh,
Got some painter's
E2,
tape
E2,
there. Yeah.
E2. I don't know
I
what
wonder
that
what
means,
that
but
is.
E2, yell it.
Look at that. E1.
Um, yeah, so Sam, I see that you just asked that question about what are the green and orange tiles. Yep, just little markings and stick-it things that they have put over the tiles indicating some things about their potential health or things that they want to watch for.
These down here look
Um,
a lot better, Chris. Like no markings, and I don't see any obvious cracks or like some of those ones up on the top that we saw were definitely cracked
True.
and removed now. Or
And
originally we saw that
removed,
they were
yeah.
cracked. Yeah. But
Yeah.
these down here on the bottom actually look pretty good. Maybe some gaps over there, but I hope it's not just that they haven't reviewed these yet.
Wilbo Baggins is asking, any thoughts on Super Heavy being used for launching non-Starship second stages in the future, like fuel depots and Skylab style stations? So the Starship system upper stage has to be the ship. Now the ship can come in many different configurations, like Elon has talked about, right? There's um, on their website right now, there's a cargo variant, there's a crew variant. We know there's the lunar variant, which mixes and matches cargo and crew and is optimized for lunar transport and not Earth transport. We know that Elon has also talked about variants that are just deep space starships that never come back to Earth. So, in terms of what you're saying about launching non-Starship second stages, it would still have to be the generic outer form of what you see here. It still needs engines. It still needs to be able to haul itself into orbit. Because remember, the second stage is much more than just us. The ship is much more than just the thing that carries the payload. It also has the engines that complete the orbit insertion burn into Earth orbit, whether that be your final destination or an interim destination. So it would still need all of that. So really, it just comes down to what is the upper part of it designed for and honed in on for that particular use. And so basically, it's just multiple different versions of what the ship can look like. So multiple different versions of what sits atop the propellant tanks of the ship is basically the answer to that as of now. Which I think we can just throw that disclaimer on just about everything, right, Das?
Yeah, I think so.
um, Desmo saying that thing is really big for something that doesn't exist. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you. Appreciate the support.
Nice.
James Jury's saying, why are you watching an empty field? Nice. um, Paul is saying, I love listening to you guys in the fantastic video from Mary and the cam bots. Now that's a bad name, lol. Mary and the cam bots. Okay.
Doesn't
Yeah.
sound appropriate.
Yes. Oh my gosh, and Paul, that was a $50 super chat. I almost missed that. Thank you so much, Paul. That's incredible. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate that support. Rough Rider Show is asking, what were the issues with the Buckner crane the other day? Das, what were
Well,
the
we
issues
heard it
with
was
the crane?
yeah, there was some sort of repair needed, and the part didn't come in time. Was my understanding. I don't know exactly what it was, but that was what we were hearing out there. So hopefully that gets resolved because what are they going to use to lift Ship 20 onto Pad B? Usually the Buckner crane is what's sort of crawled over that way to do it, but are they going to move the massive Franken crane that we call it, or what are they going to use? I'm not sure. Certainly they have a plan, though.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
looking at
Indeed.
tiles right now. Sorry.
No, no, no. Keep looking at all the pretty shiny new things. Yes. Very much so. Max is asking, any has there been any more information about the mystery stand slash base structure that they are building? I didn't see it mentioned in Tim's interview. Not that I am aware. Das?
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, which mystery stand? Um, I know that there's a couple different things that we've been keeping an eye on, and they all seem to be sort of test stands, like pressure test stands. It's the one that looks like it may exert pressure on the entire barrel of something, like a big hydraulic crushing system or something like that. But I haven't seen any official word on what those are going to be used for. And if I'm not mistaken, if we're talking about the same thing, they're still out at the assembly yard out behind the production site, and they haven't been moved into any specific position up around the test site. So no official word on what those are going to be for. We can certainly guess based on the fact that they have these massive hydraulic rams and then a miniature version of hydraulic rams and all these different things, but not exactly sure what the official plan is there.
Indeed. David Dean saying, thanks for all the great coverage. What vehicle will fly to orbit first? An uncrewed Starship or a crewed Starliner? Well, to that I will say stay tuned in 40 minutes when NASA and Boeing announce what is up with the Starliner vehicle and what it will be doing. There is a telecon coming up in 40 minutes at 1 p.m. Eastern, 1700 UTC, where NASA and Boeing will update us on what's been going on with Starliner and what the thinking is per a launch date. But there's definitely stuff out there, publicly out there, indicating that there might only be about 2 days remaining before before Starliner would have to destack to allow ULA to stack the Atlas for the interplanetary Lucy spacecraft mission, which will take precedence because of a very short 20-ish, 21-ish day interplanetary launch window coming up in October. But that is where we currently stand with Starliner.
I,
And we'll have more information in about 40 minutes when NASA talks a little bit more about it.
I like this parade of lifts
I
that's
know, look at that.
following the ship out.
It's the TPS tile workers.
If you know something, you're probably not wrong. You're
I know,
probably
yeah.
not wrong about that. It's Starship prototype S-20 and its parade of TPS attendants here.
Yep, exactly. The parade of TPS attendants. Yes. Yes.
I feel like they
Anthony
need a
Trant.
song.
Oh my God. Yes, they do. They do. They do. I love it. Anthony Trent, thanks so much for the support. Really appreciate it. Starship Super Heavy is asking thoughts on the BO protest. Um, Protest is done. I wish they'd get to work on actually building what they want. That's my view on that. Um, Louis Andre from Canada saying, waiting for the border to reopen so that I can continue my trip and drive down to Starbase. Until then, thanks for all the continued coverage. Awesome. Thank you, Louis. Oh, sorry, sorry, Louis Andre. Thank you for that. Robert Hobson with a $100 super chat. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Loved Ship 20 and the amazing Technicolor Dream Cone. Ah, you win. That's better.
Nice.
Uh, yes, but seriously, thank you so much for the $100 support. Very, very appreciated. And Jared right behind Robert with a $50 chat of support saying, thank you guys for the coverage. Thank you guys for covering each aspect of the project. Keep it up. I hope to devote my talents to SpaceX. I wish my recent SpaceX application luck. Good luck, man.
Nice.
I hope it comes through. So yeah, we're getting closer to the launch that you can see it coming along. Dust. I know this is one of your favorite shots from the robot, where we got some grass and some water in the
Yep, yep.
in the view. Yeah.
I'm juggling things over here, but this is a really cool angle. We don't use it as often. Well, when I'm in control, we use it more often. but we don't often point the cameras in this direction, and it's just a really cool shot. So we're getting ready to end up back this way because we have sort of this starts to occlude some of the other things at the test site. Let me bring that down a little bit.
So, Cold Warrior is asking a question here. Is anyone walking behind the ship picking up tiles as they fall off? And this is now making me have a question. Did I miss something last week when it rolled out and rolled back?
Oh,
Were tiles actually falling off
tiles
of
were
it?
cascading off of it, Chris, on
Oh,
the way
so
back.
so it was actually doing a Space Shuttle Columbia impression. Even better. Yes.
Yeah, it's cascading. I mean, I think we saw 2 or 3 tiles fall off, and they sort of it was crazy how they looked because they sort of floated down like a piece of styrofoam. They don't
Oh, yeah.
fall like a
Well,
brick. They're
yeah.
so lightweight. They're so not dense, I guess. They have really low density. They literally sort of fluttered down off the side of it, but we saw them coming off of the top section where they have all these markers. Got a couple of tweets that I think Gav was here helping out, and he flipped a
Ah.
couple of those and tweeted out some tiles falling off it. All the way back to the production site. When it was on the pad at the production site, like turned into the gate, there was still a tile that we saw fall off at that range. So, all
Ah.
right.
All right. I like that. Uh Oh, I love this name. Le Crazy Monkey 15. Thank you for the new membership or the upgraded membership. Really appreciate that. Kevin L, does Starship really require a fully filled tank to land on the moon, as shown in the Blue Origin chart? Keep up the great work. That's a good question. Does it actually require a full tank? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't believe, based on the fact that it can do a free return trajectory without being refueled, that it would need an entire fuel tank to shoot itself outward to the moon and then slow down and then get there and get back up. But I don't know exactly how much of that it needs, and I don't know how much NASA or SpaceX might want in there as contingency. The heat shield and thermal control rolling of the vehicle will very much help mitigate boil off of the liquid oxygen and liquid methane inside of the tank. So that's not really a huge concern. But Starship, the HLS, might have to loiter for several months before the Orion is ready to launch to the Gateway, to go meet up with it, or not the Gateway, or to it. I don't know. Depending on which option they go with, either they all rendezvous at the Gateway or they rendezvous with the ship itself. Under that current plan, but uncertain right now exactly how much, in terms of how full do those tanks need to be for it to actually do an HLS style Artemis mission? Great question, though. Really good question. And ALEWXX was also asking a little bit earlier, if Lunar Starship has no flaps, how does it get back to Earth and to the ground? Are they are part of the reusable concept to use them again and again at landing? I have a couple of ways to answer this. One is that the lunar variant of Starship only needs to get itself technically back into low Earth orbit for tanker starships to go up and refuel it. It doesn't actually have to land back down on Earth. Under the current concept, since it does not launch and land humans from Earth, it only does the transportation to and from the moon in the Orion vehicle or the Lunar Gateway. Lunar Starship doesn't have to re-enter Earth's atmosphere. It can just get itself back to low Earth orbit and then sit there and wait for tankers to come up, and then it can be reused again under concept ideas. Um, Now, that said, Elon has also started talking about the fact that maybe the ships won't have flaps. He specifically mentioned that when he was talking about them getting, when he was responding to the Blue Origin infographics, that we're talking about how complex and risky 16 fueling missions were, and he said, well, it might not need 16 because because if the ships don't have flaps and they don't have a few other things, then that means that their total payload mass to orbit rises from approximately 100 metric tons to approximately 150 metric tons, which is interesting. So maybe they don't. Maybe they're looking at a way to use. Maybe they're looking at a way to use thrusters to maintain attitude control, or tank venting to maintain attitude control. Maybe they're wondering if they even need the aerosurface flaps. anymore, which would be interesting if they were to determine that they don't need those for atmospheric entry. We'll have to see. But the bottom line answer to your question is that the lunar version does not have to re-enter Earth's atmosphere and land under the current concept. And Richmond, thank you so much for the new membership. Fermi Paradox, thank you so much for the support as well. Nerdly Knight, both spelled with K's. I like that. We haven't mastered Vesemir propulsion yet, but it's definitely one to keep your eye on. An ion joke. I like that. Very
Oh
well
my.
done. Well done, Nerdly Knight. Well done. Hat tip, sir. Hat tip. Or ma'am. Yes. Jorgen, why are the tiles already cracking before the ship has been through any testing? Why are they so delicate? Won't this be a problem? So we saw some of the tiles crack. Um, w- we, but yeah, this is a good question, right? They are cracking, they are getting damaged. Now to be fair, some of that we now to be fair, how much of that is they got damaged because of testing, and how much of that was maybe they got damaged as they were being put on? I don't know. There is some damage. There are some good things that they are learning from these transports, right? Just like NASA learned about tile applications when they put Columbia on the back of a 747 and lost hundreds of tiles going down the runway.
And it's the same reason they stacked it too, like the whole stacking where
Yes,
they put it up on the
exactly.
pad. If you saw that, we've got tiles, right?
Yes,
And we actually put together that "I was there" shirt. So you're talking about
yes.
learning things, and they learned things from stacking that full stack. So this is one of the new things that we've tossed in the store over there. All the tiles, and it says "I was there" down on the bottom with the picture of the full stack. Now, the table wasn't actually attached to the bottom of the rocket. Maybe we should have put some ground down there. Some people give us some feedback. But this is over in the shop. If you want to support what we're doing, thank you, Michael. You can hop on over to the shop and pick up one of the new designs, the "I Was There" shirt that depicts the first stacking of Starship prototype S20 up on top of that booster 4 on the orbital launch mount over there. I just had to toss that in real quick. It was a cool design. We haven't had an opportunity to really show it off on the stream. So talking about tiles, talking about learning lessons, talking about getting the whole thing stacked. It's another cool way to support what we're doing. Back to you, Chris.
uh, why, thank you, DOS. And now that it has been returned to me, we continue to watch Starship on the Texas Serengeti as it moves slowly toward its new testing campaign. And you can see its fan club there, some of the smaller cranes bowing in reference to Starship as it. Okay, I can't keep that up for much longer than that. But for those of you who appreciate nature documentary style
Oh my.
things, we can definitely go there. But yes, but let's see. Does here's a good question from Bijoy saying does S20 have Raptors installed? No, it does not have any Raptors installed on it right now at present. Also, Travis Smith, thank you for the new membership or the upgraded membership. Very much appreciate that type of support. And some of us have asked the question earlier on in the stream about Starliner and which would make it to orbit first, a crewed Starliner or a uncrewed Starship test flight. And breaking news from Boeing: Starliner is not going anywhere for several months. Boeing's statement says, we have determined Starliner will return to our factory and be demated from the Atlas for deeper level troubleshooting of 4 propulsion system valves. With NASA, we have decided to stand down for this launch opportunity to make way for other national priority missions. The fear here is that basically this means next year. For OFT2, there are several critical missions, both for national security and for interplanetary exploration, remaining on the Atlas V manifest for the remainder of this year, plus a very busy International Space Station schedule of visiting vehicles, cargo ships, crew rotations, galore here out through the end of the year, as well as spacewalks to continue installing the Nauka module, the scheduled delivery of the Prishal docking node to the International Space Station as well for Nauka. So unfortunately, this is a rather lengthy delay for the Starliner, but it is official that Starliner will be demated and will be going back to the C3PF for additional testing and corrective actions. The Atlas V will have to be destacked, as this is the one that is earmarked for the Atlas, and another one will have to be stacked. But that is the latest. And back to some questions on our present on our present stream, DOS, which is watching which is watching Ship 20 roll on out, and uh Scop Scop,
Scop.
I think is how you say it, SCOPP, so not scoop, but Scop, maybe, is asking, "Wait, what is happening here? Why are there tiles with duct tape? Why are some missing? And why are they rolling it back out to the test site?" So, yes to all of your questions. And for those of you who have joined us here a bit more recently, good to recap too. Yep, Ship 20 is on its way back out to the test site for some additional pre flight testing. It is going to what was formerly referred to as suborbital pad B, but that a loudspeaker announcement earlier this morning referred to as cryogenic test site. So that is why the ship is moving back out to the launch site area. In terms of the tiles, they are not fully on yet. There are still portions of missing thermal protection system, and the multicolor TPS coat or nose coat that it is wearing right now, as we have been calling it, those are marks to indicate areas that are damaged or areas that they might want to flag for further inspection or removal and replacement while it is out there for testing or at a later date. Because one thing to remember here is this is going to the suborbital site, and those stands are not very high up off the ground. So the cranes and the lifts that they need to access the areas for thermal protection system work out at the launch site are tall enough to reach in that regard, much like we saw them doing when it moved back into the high bay and when it was sitting outside of the high bay for the last couple of days.
Yeah, and it really is, Chris. I
Yeah.
mean, we've been trying to dispel that notion. So many people got so excited. Oh, the full stack, the world's most tallest, most powerful rocket, ready to go. Like everybody was really excited about this flight, thinking that the initial stacking meant it was going to fly in a couple days or a week or something like that. And still, we constantly get people coming into Starbase Live asking, "Oh, it's all ready to go. Wait, where did it go? I thought it was ready to fly, and it was not ready to fly yet." It was a test fit. They were rolling it out there to make sure that everything lined up. Because if you have a problem with that orbital launch table that they had just installed, they need to catch it now. They don't need to catch it when the entire ship is tested and ready to go. So the purpose of that rollout was to do those fit checks and make sure it was good. I know so many people got so excited. Oh, confirmed in August a flight, and Starship was not anywhere near ready for that orbital test flight there when they did that first stack. But you see the TPS tiles still learning that. That's how you do it. You're going to see some cryo testing, I bet. We're going to see some static fires. We're going to see the booster do some testing. We're going to still see a lot of exciting things going on here, all progress towards the first orbital flight. But SpaceX is still learning some of these things. Like they're still getting that information that's required so that they have a really good chance at succeeding the first time they go for that flight, or at least not
Indeed.
blowing it up on the pad itself. What did Elon say? Like, if it makes it off the pad, it's a success?
If it makes it off the pad, it's a success. Something
Yeah,
like that.
something
Yes.
like that, yeah, words to that effect.
And William Whitfield, I just want to comment on something that you're saying. Oh, sorry, sorry, Architecture Kid, not William Whitfield. Sorry, Architecture Kid. Just want to comment on something you said about the Columbia thermal protection joke not being funny. We're not referring to STS-107.
Yeah.
We're referring to Columbia's delivery to the Kennedy Space Center in March of 1979, where she lost multiple tiles on the journey there, and it actually uncovered part of the thermal protection system problem.
Right.
That
There's
is
some
what we
iconic
are.
photos there
That is
of
what we are referring to. We would never,
yeah,
ever say anything about 107
yep,
or anything in that regard. The Columbia reference is in reference to a mission, not even a mission, when she was delivered to the Kennedy Space Center.
yep, and Chris, there are some photos of that where it's sort
Oh
of
my
rolling into
gosh, yeah.
KSC, and you're looking at the front of it, and it looks really familiar. It looks a lot like we see on Ship 20 here.
Yeah,
So,
and just
that's
like you can see like sorry, just like you can see the gray underskin of the steel here on Starship, you could see the green aluminum underskin of
yep,
Columbia many
yep.
places when she was delivered. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for covering that. That is not the sort of thing we joke about, and not everybody might know that it had the same problems with some tiles falling off. I mean, the thermal protection system clearly really important, and it's something that NASA had to go through as well when the shuttle was going through its transport and delivery teething phase. I guess you could say. Oh, is that the right way to say it, Chris?
Yeah, something
Teething
like
phase.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to learn these things, and you don't learn them by theorizing it, and you don't learn them by, oh, I drew it on paper and that's how it's all going to work perfectly. You learn them by applying the tiles and moving the ship around and seeing what happens.
Exactly. Exactly. And Wolfworm, with the support saying, I need them to hurry up and finish this move. I have a Munshot in Kerbal waiting on the launch pad and my launch window is closing.
Nice.
Well, think
Oh,
of this as just rolling out the next vehicle in sequence.
look at this in the
As it
background.
comes around the corner and arrives, yes. Now, Das, I do have a question.
Yes.
Now, since it was just here last week, does Starhopper have to check its paperwork again?
Oh, geez. Probably. Starhopper's a stickler for paperwork out there.
Right?
So
Yeah.
look, you can see it. It's actually behind the suborbital tank farm there on Mary's camera, and you can see that it is starting to come around the corner again. Mary, Boca Chica gal, has rolled out and set up the arrival angle, so we can see it actually arrive here on this side of the site, and it's going to continue coming this way and go right in that gate right there in front of her. So I love the clouds today too. Like all the little cotton ball clouds, just they're gonna look great in time lapse as they sort of march across the sky. Got herd of sheep, something.
Something
Again,
like
folks,
that.
this is S20
Something
returning for more testing. It's returning for more testing right now,
yeah,
as you do.
as you do, indeed. Keith Stevens, thank you for the new membership or the upgraded membership. Thank you very much, as well as Prasanna. Thank you very much for the membership as well. Very much appreciated. And Chris Marshall with the support saying will be interesting to see how many tiles are impacted by cryo testing. Yeah, well, that's another big part of the test campaign, right? Is getting some cryogenic fuel is getting cryogenic loads in there to see how the entirety of the tile pattern holds up under those types of conditions. So yeah, definitely part of that and definitely waiting to see there. Um oh, and Jeremy, thank you for the message there about the clarification of Columbia and the heat shield. Yes, we obviously were not making a
Yeah.
107 joke. We were making it's a Columbia arrival and delivery back in
Yeah.
March of 79. Yes. Yes, indeed. Um okay, quick
Chris,
question. Sorry. I'm still trying to grab some things. Yes, Das, what? What's up?
the lift's
Oh
going
my gosh.
across.
Oh my
the
gosh. The
the
list come
four
following 4 by 4, right?
yeah, the TPS attendants going across the same shot there. So
Oh my gosh, I love this. Oh, I love this.
I wonder why the one in the back is lower. Like, that's is it like by age? Is that a juvenile in the back that's following the parents? I don't know. There's two different colors. There's the blue ones and the orange ones. I don't know what we could divine from that, but continuing to march across here.
It's like the blue ones are the parents and the kids are like, "I don't wanna help with the family business."
Jeez. I'm gonna leave
Oh
that
my
camera on
good
that. We put that in the daily or something. I think we'll let them get all the way across that camera.
Yes, we should definitely do that. Yes, I agree. Ah, man, looking at some other questions here. Here's a good question from Prime saying, "How do they expect to rapidly reuse Starship when the tiles are damaged by installation and moving them to the pad? That's without the stress of reentry and landing." Well, yeah, and that's a
Not
very
its
good
final
question.
form.
Right,
Yeah.
not its final form. That's in part why they wanted to do a full TPS application here so that they could get that kind of data on, okay, when we installed it this way, it broke. When we installed it this way, it didn't. We know we need better attachment points here now because some of them fell off as it was rolling. We know we have this. This is all part of that learning process, and everything again. So, They'll get there. I would say in terms of TPS, but TPS is tricky. Especially these sort of lightweight tiles. But I do believe we have another TPS expert
We talked
joining
about
us.
shuttle enough.
We talked about shuttle enough. It summoned the other Chris. Yes.
Somebody mentioned shuttle. I thought, well, hang on a minute.
Well, hang
Why am I
on.
not in this conversation? I need to be talking about TPS. So for the next hour, all you're going to get is me talking about TPS, and you're going to enjoy it.
So there you go. I have another thing scheduled, so I am going to tag out with you, Chris, and I'll be back here in about hour and 15-ish, depending on how this other event I got to go to works. But take it away because we have a ship arriving at a suborbital pad. That's
Yeah,
not called a suborbital pad anymore.
Yeah.
thank you, Chris. Yeah, we timed that well, didn't we? Look at it around the corner. About to get a paperwork checked again by Hopper, as always, the pad leader there. But yeah, there's so much going on, isn't there? I'm just catching up myself because I'm just taking a break from work, and it's first of all, there's that Blue Origin infographic, and I think, who the heck is designing these things? Who is making this up? Apparently, this launch site doesn't exist. So what we're watching right now isn't real. This is Dazzy's drawn on the screen a launch site which isn't real, and Blue Origin's found out, and they said, "Hang on a minute, NASA, you're giving this contract to a company that doesn't have things at work."
See,
So
I
that
messed
was
up.
fun.
I didn't mean to give them ammunition for another infographic, but gosh, the
Unbelievable.
CGI was just
I
too
don't know
obvious.
who on earth is running that show because they've got so many great engineers. I know some of them. They are brilliant people, and they are cringing it as well. So you've got a situation at Blue where you can sort of like have a dig at Blue Origin, but it's not Blue Origin. It's their PR department and some of the people in their board. They're thinking, we've lost this contract, so what we do now is we'll put out infographics, and it'll win hearts and minds because people will read the infographics and go, "Oh yeah, that's right. SpaceX doesn't have a launch site. Oh, hang on a minute, they do. What's going on there? Oh, they're going to need all these 14 tankers. Well, Elon just said they won't need that many. It's not going to work out. It's a stupid process where I think they're trying to get into political mindsets that they are still worthy of the cause, and they've lost the contract. I don't know what they're playing at. I'm baffled by it. But the other news, moving on, is Boeing. Oh dearie me, they are not going to be launching this year by the look of things with OFT2 orbital, the Starliner test, the uncrewed test. It was in the final realms of taking a shot at launching on the 19th or 20th of this month. And up till last night, they were still trying to find a way around it. It was that close. I know Eric Berger tweeted that it expected bad news, and it was heading that way. But they still had one last attempt to try and fix it last night. And Emery Kelly did actually tweet something saying they're working through the night. And it hasn't worked out. And they've announced now officially that they're not launching in this window. They're going to demate it and send it back to the former OPF. I'm going to a segue here. You'll see I mentioned OPF there. I mentioned there's a segue coming. Trust me. They're going to have to probably look at launching maybe in a very small slot in November if they can. It's very tight. The smart money is them not launching until next year. That's how serious it was to try and make August. Because they can't make August, which is now official, they are demating the vehicle and fixing it. The schedule becomes the issue. They'll probably have to go to a different Atlas V because this Atlas V will go to Lucy, the mission coming up. ULA have only got Atlas V to launch these military payloads, which they've got scheduled for this year. So next year is looking likely for Starliner. It's a real sad situation there as well because they need this mission to go right. The worst case would have been if they'd launched before the problem with the Russian module taking the ISS for a spin, which delayed things. If they'd launched on time, they might not have seen that valve problem, and then they could have had a problem on orbit, and then they could have another failure, and that would have been game over for Starliner probably. That would have been seriously bad. So there are some silver linings in this delay that they probably found something they need to find, and they can try and now resolve it ahead of the next launch window, but that might not be till next year. So that's a real shame there. So we're going to get a press conference in 15 minutes. I won't be able to listen to it, but I'm sure we'll be seeing tweets from our people, and we'll pass on any relevant comments they have to say about that mission. As Starship rounds the corner, but we were talking about the OPF. Starliner will be rolled back to the former OPF that used by shuttles, and that will see the work being carried out in there on one of their test stands. That's where the TPS was dealt with in for the orbiters, the shuttle orbiters. So you see all these tiles you see here now with all the markers. If you'd walked in, say, in a time machine 15 years ago, in to see a shuttle OPF, you'd have seen the same markers. You would have seen the same coloured markers on the TPS of the belly of the orbiters, because that's how they marked tiles that needed either further inspection, a gap filler being repaired because they had gap fillers on the shuttle TPS, or replacement. And you could see the replaced tiles because if you look at pictures on Google of a shuttle belly in orbit where they're doing like a backflip or whatever, you'll notice that some tiles are much blacker compared to the other TPS tiles. The blacker the tile, the newer the tile. So if you saw a pure black tile on the belly of an orbiter next to some grey ones, that was a brand new tile that replaced. So you can see the kind of like the way they're working. They're a different kind of TPS and they're a different shape, but they're using the same process of having individual tiles to create a heat shield. And it's a wonderful kind of synergy, because I always say that Starship is what Shuttle always wanted to be. It's like Shuttle 2.0. This is the vehicle that has all the capability. It's far cheaper, has a faster turnaround, and can go beyond low Earth orbit. So it's like Super Shuttle. It really is. I love the way it's going, because Shuttle was restricted. It's a brilliant vehicle, but it was a dangerous vehicle. It was a capable vehicle, but it was a costly vehicle. It needed huge amounts of turnaround because it's a crewed vehicle. You can't take risks with crewed vehicles. And we saw what happened with Shuttle twice, and had a few near misses as well. A real few near misses. Our end on our intros and outros is yikes, you bet, concur. We don't need any more of these. That's STS 93. STS 93 was a close call. So that they had lots of issues with reliability and risk with Shuttle, because it was a highly complex vehicle. Whereas Starship, as complex as it is, especially with the engines, is a much more simplified vehicle. It's about power. It's about capability. It really is. That's what helps it turn around and become a rapidly reusable rocket, as Elon likes to call it. It's something that can be rapidly reusable, whereas Shuttle could never be that. Even with all the best will in the world, there was just too much hardware, too much complexity involved for it to launch anything closer in the final days, at least, anything closer than 3-month turnaround. Nothing less than a 3-month turnaround, because there was so much work required to process an orbiter after flight, during the processing flow in the OPF, roll out to the pad, or roll out to the VAB even first to be mated with ET and the SRBs, and then rolled out to the pad. Even the pad flow was 10 days minimum. So you compare that with Starship. Starship's pad flow is literally being brought back down to the launch mount itself, the booster at least, and then just popping the Starship on top of the mount. It's literally all encompassing. It's going to be returning to where it's going to launch again from. If you can take that into account, that's incredibly crazy. But before
Chris,
I go on to
I
Go
keep
on.
jumping in because all of this stuff with Starship is in theory. It's what Elon wants to design towards. It's what how he wants the system to work. But remember, people were saying the same stuff about Shuttle. Shuttle was supposed to be rapidly we're going to be able to refurbish it, and it's just we'll just hop in and throw the payload in the back and throw it up on the rocket again. In reality, it didn't work out that way, and I hope that I think the right way to say it is I know that SpaceX has learned some lessons from Shuttle. You don't want it to be this big complicated flow, and you don't want it to be look at this massive infrastructure required to support it. But I want to set people's expectations. There will be some learning along the way. We're going to see things like tiles falling off, and SpaceX will note that, and they'll come up with a fix, because they know that they can't have tiles just cascading off the side. That's not rapidly reusable, but they'll get there. That's the thing with SpaceX. That's the superpower of SpaceX. And in the fact that it's not a crewed vehicle, just like you said, they're not human beings aboard the vehicle, so you can rapidly iterate. You can try things that we could never try with Shuttle, because every single flight had humans on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think SpaceX is going down the right path there.
It is. I'm going to, but I have so much to say. I'm going to quickly try and get it out as much as possible, because there are old pictures in our L2 historical section showing the artistic drawings, and they were literally drawings because before the day of computer graphics or whatever, of a shuttle in an OPF, literally just rolling into like an aircraft hangar and having the payload put back in and then roll back out to launch site literally the same day. That never got close to being
Nope,
reality.
not
Never
even
got close.
close.
So I see what you mean by calibrated expectations there.
Yeah,
And also
it's
people in go on.
No, I'm going to be quiet. But SpaceX has that ability, especially like Elon said, the ability to experiment with it without having humans on board. Like if a shuttle went up while they were trying to test something, you couldn't do that. That wasn't a risk that NASA could ever take. You couldn't just change something. Oh, I don't know. Let's see if it works out. In Starship, being an uncrewed vehicle, they have the opportunity, they have the ability to experiment with it in an unprecedented way. They can blow one up and it's not the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of how Elon's set this test cadence. He's allowed it to really push the boundaries to find the
Yep.
data they need to make the refinements in the future vehicles. It's a beautiful thing. And not many companies could do that.
Yep.
And I think he's just using that experience he has from maybe the car industry as well with the automation. He's thinking, well, hang on, maybe we over automated things. Let's get people in. So he got the surge going. It's a lot of clever lessons learned throughout the industry and being applied to his Starship program. But a quick question in chat. A lot of people asked it actually. Buran or Shuttle? I love Buran because Buran had the Agena. And I know Tim Dodd's going to do a video on Russian engines, and I'm eagerly looking forward to that because he's going to cover Agena. I know that for a fact. That was such a powerful launch system. It was amazing. Buran, the orbiter, only had OMS engines on the back because all the boost into orbit was from the Agena. It was incredible, incorporated, like, if you can imagine the external tank and the solid rocket booster and the shuttle incorporated into that, and that lifted the whole stack. It was super powerful, and it's such a shame it didn't survive as a program because of the fall of the Soviet Union and other factors involved as well, because it was also uncrewed. Shuttle, US Shuttle could have flown uncrewed, but it needed a cable called the ORAP, which was literally a box of tricks in the cable, which basically deployed the landing gear at landing. That's all they needed to make Shuttle uncrewed. It is incredible, really, to think about it, because the rest of the time, the orbiter could fly herself on DAP, which is digital autopilot. Anyway, I can go on for ages about Shuttle and brands. Don't start me off. I'm going to go back to questions. One for you, actually, Daz. Dampar asked, any news on DangerCam? What's the situation with DangerCam's vacation right now?
So we actually saw SpaceX is doing construction at the lot. You can actually see it in this shot. You see on the very lower right-hand corner, there's an orange little piece of equipment out in the field near that white box truck, the red pickup truck and the white box truck and that little orange piece of equipment out in the field. That's where Danger was, and you can actually see they put that erosion control barrier around that site. So SpaceX is actively working there. We still don't have an ETA on exactly when we'll be able to replace a camera there, but we are continuing to sort of stand by. They're actively working on it, though. You can see it in this shot right here. So good question, but Danger's still out on beach vacation. We're still definitely getting our use out of it. So we shall see.
I think my accent was going to play there. Erigida. I can't do it. Never mind. You know what I mean. Anyway, are you guys Purple Planet? See, I can't even say Purple Planet now.
Purple Planet.
Yeah,
There
I've
you go.
been up since 4:30 in the morning of UK time, by the way. Give me a break. Purple Planet. Are you worried about the heat tiles as me? I think we covered that basically by saying, well,
Yeah.
look, they're getting lessons learned from that. So it's gonna be clever. Fermi Paradox asks, how much bigger will SpaceX need to make Starship, now airliner size, for people not to go crazy en route to Mars? 5 times bigger? Well, it is quite large, really, if you think
big.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Remember,
already.
I don't think they're stacking 100 people in there on the first ship to Mars, right? They'll have much smaller crews on the first ships to Mars, so you'll have a lot more room per person. Remember, it's about as big as the ISS, and we've got what, 6 folks up there on the ISS basically full time, right, Chris?
Yeah, exactly, and that is a surprising amount of what's called internal capability. Where I've seen renders. We've never seen a SpaceX render, to be fair, but we've seen renders where Elon likes it, and that gives you a clue that you're on the right track of what would the internal makeup of a nose cone area of a Starship would look like. And it's a lot of space. You can have cabins going all the way around the side of it. You can have decks. You can have a workout area. I think there's enough room already to really look after a crew on the way to Mars. If you take into account the MTV, which NASA uses, the Mars Transport Vehicle, which Orion would dock to for a trip to Mars, that is probably less space, internal space, than a Starship is right now. So I don't think they need to make them any bigger. I think they've got plans to make Starship diameter larger in the future, but not Would you need it right now? No, I
No.
think it'd be
Yeah, I
fine
don't
right
think
now.
so. And Chris, look at all the TPS attendants coming up the road. You see the lifts?
It's a convoy of cranes
It
and lifts,
is.
man lifts and whatever. Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, they're turning into launch site already. They made
Yep.
good progress down Highway 4 there.
Yep.
How far is it? I mean, I don't know how many. Is it 2-3 miles?
From the entrance, it's about 1.7 to 2
Right.
miles. Yeah, depending on which entrance you come out. Like the where they build the cryo shells and the assembly yard in the back is a little bit further. The main entrance where you come out of the high bay is a little bit less. I think it's 1.7, but I need to see if I'm remembering line of sight or along the road because it has that dog leg in it. That's why it's Dogleg Park out there.
CIP Railroad asks, curious. I'm wondering when they cryotest Ship 20, would we be able to see frost on the heat shield tiles?
Yeah.
That's a great question because TPS is by the initial of the first initial there is thermal, and I'm thinking back because the shuttle example is not fair in that the frost would form on the outside of the firm on the TPS of the external tank, but would not be directly in contact with the TPS of the orbiter, and thus I can't really take comparisons to the orbiter because it's not being fueled from the inside, apart from the OMS pods, which are not relevant to the belly TPS.
Yep.
What we've got there is, I think we will, I really do, because you do see a lot of frost that builds up on the steel skin of starships during the cryoproofing. I can't see how the TPS would avoid chilling down to the same amount where it would frost because of the contact with the external air. What do you think, Daz?
I don't think that the tiles will get cold enough to actually freeze the humidity out of the air onto it.
Mm.
I mean, they're insulative, right? It's their entire purpose, and I just don't think that we'd get ice on the outside of the tiles. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, we never had that sort of situation with the shuttle because there was never cryogenic liquids right on the other side of the tiles. It was just the bottom of the shuttle airframe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I did check, Chris, just to verify. It's 2.3 miles from the exit where the high bay is there to roughly where the entrance is. I'm not going to show it on stream, but Google Maps is reporting that it's about 6 minutes, despite the usual traffic. I'm not sure if that takes the road closure into account right
Yeah.
now.
I just imagine his Starship honking. Out
Yeah,
of the way,
it's a
Roadhog.
6 minutes or an hour and a half if a Starship's moving down the road. Depends on who you get stuck behind, but it is 2.3 miles or whatever that is in kilometers.
And look at this amazing view. This is with Booster 3 as a backdrop. We still don't know what they're planning with Booster 3. I think they've got several options, and most of them are not good. One would be to scrap it. I think that's still favourite. The second is to give it a real torture test for cryoproofing, where they literally just make it go pop. But I think they've had enough pop experience now to know that their steel welds are good. I wonder if there's any value in testing the thrust puck on Booster 3 further, look at through a pressure, real sort of like torture test, as they call it. I don't know. I think the smart money is on scrap it. I would like to see him store it somewhere, but Elon has mentioned before, I think it was on Tim's video, that they're running out of storage space. He doesn't want like 10 starships lined up. I think that was his quote.
They
So
need to turn it into a hotel.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'll be people that love their own little prototype starship or booster in their back garden, but
Crew
you've got
housing.
to
I
pay
mean,
for the transportation.
I'd love to see crew housing. Like park it over there in the back and turn it into a hotel for crew with an elevator up one side, and then each level is like a little individual apartment. I'd love it. I'd love it. Anyways,
BJ Como with a great question. Are we going to see RVAC static fires? If so, how SpaceX is going to reevaluate RVAC engine performance as those engines are optimized for vacuum? Well, they do test fire them at McGregor. So we do know they do test them on the ground and get enough data, obviously, to provide them with the data they need to validate the engine performance. But if you look at some of our photographs in previous articles where we use Gary Blair's aerial photographs, we've seen RVACs on the test stand in the horizontal position. We've not seen an RVAC in a vertical position yet. I've not seen one on a tripod stand. I don't think it fits. We've not seen one on a new test stand, which I do think it would fit. So they've only used the original Raptor test stand. It's got 2 bays, and that one has basically had firings of RVACs. So I think they could static fire one on the ground and get data from it. I don't know what the plan is, so I'm pausing by making sure I don't make any statements on that fact. It'd be fascinating to watch. It's a great question, basically. That's what I'm trying to get across. It's a very good question because we don't know the answer, and I will be interested in the answer.
Hey, real quick, I just got some information from Boca Charts, our friend over there on Twitter at Boca Charts, saying that this is the fastest they've ever moved a Starship from the production site out
Wow.
to the test site. Less than an hour. It clocked to gate 58 minutes. And last time it came out, when S20 came out there for the initial stacking, it was an hour and 23 minutes. So we know they had a little bit of a pause last time they were coming out, right by our cameras, which we were not complaining about. But that caused them to take almost an hour and a half last time. And this time they came in just under 1 hour, moving all the way from the production site to the test site, like gate to gate. So cool.
Yeah,
That's over on Twitter, at Boca Charts. If one of the mods could put that link into chat. If
yeah,
you want
very good account to
statistics,
follow.
yeah, absolutely. If you want statistics and stuff like that, click on that link and give Boca Charts a follow. Appreciate you there, Boca Charts. Thanks for the information.
I'm watching where this thing's rolling to.
Yeah, it's
Is
sort
this
of.
going towards the orbital launch site?
Well, it's hard to tell. I'll switch to this angle real quick because they're assembling all the arms there, right? They've got that quick
Yeah.
disconnect, the yellow arm, and they've got the catch arms, the chopsticks arms. Elon called them, and they're on the ground to the left of Starship from this view, and that's all sort of the landing pad. So a huge flat concrete area where you got a space to land starships back when they did that, and sometimes it's hard to tell because you got to sort of go around all the arm work and then you decide, are you going to take a turn over towards the orbital pad? It would be to the left from this angle. Or are you going to turn and go over to the suborbital pads, the test stands, over to the right? And the way the TPS tiles are facing, it looks like it's continuing to go in that direction. But just about every time you see something go through the gate, and it's always got to turn right to get around that quick disconnect arm, is the one right there in front of the gate.
Yeah.
So we're pretty sure that it's going over to Pad B suborbital for cryo testing. Weird though that they deinstalled those RAMs last night. So
That's
not
right. I was
exactly
going to say
sure.
the two clues are, first of all, Mr. Patel, the wonderful Mr. Patel in Tim's Part 3 video. Sam Patel, I am such an admirer of him. He reminds me of a pad leader from 39A who was a massive bloke, and he was just like, I get everything done and everybody goes to my tune. And he was like really fun with it as well there. And Sam Patel just reminded me so much of him. He said, we're preparing Pad B to take a ship, and thrust rams coming out last night. So that's where we think Pad B.
And real quick, I may have read a chart wrong. I'm trying to figure out the right way to read this chart, but apparently I may have said that the rollback, the previous rollback, is what I was supposed to be talking about, was 58 minutes. I'm trying to figure out exactly how long this rollout took. So I'm going to correct that in just a second. Let me make sure I get the right information.
And the mods have put the link into chat, so everyone can follow them now and get some good data there. It's amazing. There's this massive people on social media who are picking their own subject matters really well, actually. So you got a nice spread, and you can just get all the data you want. That's the wonder of the internet these days, as an old person like me would say. The wonders in the internet.
Yeah, we don't have the time for today's rollout yet. We don't have the timing for that one yet. So I got a graph that made it like the way I read it. I thought that it had today's rollout on it, and it did not have the rollout on it. So we haven't actually got the timing for that. Sorry about that. I got a graph and I was excited and I read it wrong. So
I've
we
got
don't.
a.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Daz. I keep over
It's okay.
talking to
It's
you.
okay.
I was just going to say we've got a chat quiz question here. What movie is this from? Engineer Winky. All those cranes with the TPS attendants have to keep following Ship 20 because Elon said he wants their TPS reports on his desk by Monday. Keep up the great coverage. Go on, chat. Who's first to get the movie? Because I know which one it is. And this is why I have to wait 10 seconds for chat to catch. There we go.
Chat to catch up.
Oh, Mr. Krause. John Krause is in chat.
Who let him in?
Everybody
Chat?
follow John. He's doing some amazing work with Inspiration 4.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, the one mission, the private astronaut mission that I really can get behind. None of this PR business where they're all like saying, oh, I'm going to space, I'm an astronaut now. These folk will be astronauts. And there are 4 amazing people. And John's doing an amazing job photo documenting their journey towards launch. Absolutely incredible mission that'll be. That is not just going to space, it's going to an orbit that is up there with the highest orbit a shuttle could go to, which was the Hubble Servicing Mission orbit. Really is. And they're going to have that cupola dome. It's, oh my word. I am so
Yeah.
looking forward to that mission.
Yeah.
Really am. And for
Like
such
days
a
on
great
orbit.
cause as well. Such a
Not
great cause.
not minutes technically past the line, but actually days in a real orbit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That
they've
is a
been
real
training
mission.
too. You know, this isn't like show up and do an orientation on how to like connect your seatbelt and stuff like that. They've been training for months. They've been doing team building exercises. I know they climbed a mountain. They were out in the fighter jets the other day. They have been doing some actual training, dragon simulators, all sorts of stuff there. Definitely a lot more training than you would need if you were just sort of strapping in and going for a ride up above the Kármán line for a couple minutes. So I agree with you there, Chris, with the amount of work and training that they're putting in, months of work in training to prepare for this mission that's coming up here in the fall, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A quick shout out to TBXMXDOG. I'm sure it's a name I can pronounce, but as I mentioned earlier with my Russian engine pronunciations, I'm rubbish at reading off a screen. But
It's
yeah,
like
thank you very much for your support. And Thomas
turbo
Bolden.
motocross dog. I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah, there we go, be something
I
like
made that up.
that.
Yeah.
And people like me using my real name. Yeah.
There you go.
Thomas Bolden, real name. Hey, consider the pace of work in Boca Chica. Do workers down there have a good safety record? We've no idea, but I would assume so because it's such a high-profile build site. You can have safety operators there. What's the name of the health and safety
OSHA.
body in the
Yeah,
states?
OSHA, Occupational Health
There you
and
go.
Safety Administration.
Yeah, so they'll be all over it. And I mean, let's face it, they're such a big company, SpaceX. They will have so much regulations involved that without me sort of like saying, oh, of course they will, and not having any data about it, I can assume, sir, from the fact that OSHA will be keeping a very close eye on them. Zed asks, Zed, that's an easy one to pronounce, thank you. Since the removal of landing legs, have they figured out how to land on the moon or Mars? The lunar Starship has little dinky legs, I believe. That's what they're going to use for that landing. So that'd be the way around it. Mars, we still yet to have more details on. That's still very much kind of like Mars Base Alpha. It's amazing graphics Elon showed at the presentation back now 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was. Amazing GIF showing the build up of Mars Base Alpha, but the starships in that graphic is very much out of date now compared to the starships they've got on the testing schedules now. So it's a wait and see situation there. But as far as bringing them back to Earth, that's where it changes. The booster doesn't have legs anymore. It's going to be caught by Mechazilla, the amazing grabby arms that'll be on the side of the tower. I am such a fan of that. I cannot wait to see that in action. I can't even wait to see it installed.
It's
That
going
is
to be
just
insane.
oh, it's surreal. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. Billy, thank you for your support. WA Spa?
Waspa. Wasp.
No, WASPA. Wasp even.
SB,
Wasp
something
maybe.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Wasp was taken and he had to put a space in there to take the Wasp username. The tiles seem unfeasibly on the long run, so archaic. What happened with the test 10 years ago with the majestic shielding against hot plasma? Oh yeah, well, that's something new. I think Elon basically decided that wasn't going to work out for them, or it was too complex. So they've gone to the proper old style TPS. It may seem archaic because the shuttle's been a 30-year career, and we're so used to seeing TPS tiles on shuttle. But hey, look, these are clever people. It's not just Elon who's the chief engineer there. I mean, he hates being called CEO because he's not a CEO. He's hands on. He's there with a pencil and paper drawing design. So he's chief engineer. He has an amazing team behind him. So for us, or especially for me, to say, I think they probably should do it different, is going to have no weight on this at all because they are the people who are paid and the clever people who are there to design these things and have opted towards this design of heat shield. So obviously that regenerative kind of like the fluid-based kind of TPS protection where they use cooling has gone out the window and they've gone for TPS. They might bring it back in the future. They might find a way that works, but yeah. It's probably too complex. That's what I'd say.
We've seen a lot of different ideas come out. Especially, it was originally, stainless steel doesn't need it, and then stainless steel will have not aspirational cooling, like the weeping cooling. Is it actually aspirational? Just two different ways to use the word.
Yeah,
it is. I think. I
it is. I
second
mean,
guess myself.
if you look back on some of the plans that came out back years ago before even they started building what is now a launch site. Although Blue Dot, I'm going to do. I've done enough Blue Origin jokes to last me a lifetime. Let's just say, until they started testing them at the launch site, they've changed the design so many times, but in a great way. Read it out for us, Daz. I can't pronounce some of these words.
Maybe it's transpirational here. It's shielding,
Transpirational. Yeah, that's the one.
transpiration, not aspiration.
No,
Elon has
I
so
mean,
many
the thing is, you got to.
aspirations.
I'm in a little cupboard hole reading off a very small screen on a very small
Yeah, I
laptop,
gotcha.
and trust me, I'm getting old, so it's not. I sometimes need help on what I'm seeing there, but that's. I'm showing my
Yeah.
age, aren't I? God, am
I,
I?
I think it's all good. I mean, we've already seen some steps forward, like the little mounting. Well, some new ideas, I guess, the little mounting studs and stuff like that. I wonder. They're going to have to fly it, and they're going to have to see how the tiles work, and can they solve the problems? Do they need to go a different direction? I think that it would probably be pretty revolutionary if you could spray on the thermal protection, like something that would be able to handle the expansion and contraction of the ship skin as it goes through heating cycles. You got cryogenic liquid inside and plasma on the outside, and something that could maintain some flexibility. But imagine you got a little chip in it or something like that, and a lift just goes up with a foam spray and just sprays
Yeah.
over it, and all right, there you go, back to orbit. I know maybe that's something I haven't seen any research on that, but another step forwards. Maybe that's something that somebody's looking at. Clearly, there's all sorts of issues, but for now, they're starting off with these tiles, and you know that they're going to work to dial it in.
On the same topic, Red Spar asks, why do they not have some kind of spray on heat shield
Oh,
by
well,
now
there
in
you go. It's right
2021?
there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
I would
it's
hope by now to move from that system now, so that we're pretty much covering the questions before we even seen the questions there.
yeah, good
Thanks
deal.
for your support, by the way.
Yeah.
Ron Smith, surprised Starship isn't using RCC. Can't wait for it to fly with RCC. That was the leading edge of the wings on the orbiters.
Yeah,
And
carbon.
yeah, carbon.
Yeah.
And the only way they would find a use for that would be on the tips of the aero surfaces, the fins, and the flaps. They've got what looks like curvated TPS tiles on there, and I would wonder if that's actually better than RCC panels because, as we all know from the experience of Columbia, RCC panels are quite light. I mean, they can get damaged quite easily.
Yeah.
And they're looking for fast turnaround. So I would assume rather than replacing these large panels of RCC on the wing leading edges, on the tip and the leading edges of the aero surfaces, they can just turn out some tiles. That makes more sense to me. So I think that's where they've gone with it.
Yeah. Chris, this next one here, I got a question. Why are the tiles not white? I never thought about that. Like, why are the shuttle tiles black? I don't actually know.
The thermal blankets on the orbiter was white, and that
Right.
was thermal protection when they're in orbit. Because when you're in orbit, you go through very cold and very hot periods on your orbit. For the re-entry, you need to deflect it, and the black TPS tiles were the way of thermal barriering it on the friction side of things, because that's what you're doing when you re-enter. You're basically slowing down a bit of friction of hitting the atmosphere, and that was the best solution for them. But yeah, thermal protection works both ways, so that's why you saw black and white orbiters and the white tiles on the OMS pods and the white blankets on the body of the vehicle. That was thermal protection as well, but for re-entry protection, you need the black ones.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's see. We just like super chats keep coming in, y'all. It does look like Starship has sort of reached a position here. So let me run through. I know we're always doing questions, and we could talk about every one of these for 5 or 10 minutes. But let me
Actually,
run
me.
through. Yeah, hey, no, it's all good. Rockwell Tori, thank you so much for the super chat there. What's your takeaways from Tim's part 3? You know something? I'm going to sum it up that there's a lot of people out there, and it looks like they are in on this. Like they are
And Sam
here.
Patel's awesome.
Yeah, to get this project done, people working through the night. You saw the workers sort of approaching Elon, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm so exhausted. Do we have to do it? It was, we're here. We're going to get this done. So I think that that's probably the biggest overarching takeaway there. Like Elon surely installed a sense of urgency in getting this project done. NHS Porter, new member, appreciate the support there. Prasanna Kumar, thank you so much as well. Glenn Roberts says, you're a real astronaut when you have to go to the bathroom while in 0G. That's the
Well, inspiration 4 will be, so that
Yeah.
classifies it. There we go.
the deciding factor. If you haven't gone to the bathroom in 0G, then you're not an astronaut. Nice. Musical Wolves, we've seen that name before.
Yep.
Says, could SpaceX use cheese in the shape of Starship as a mass simulator for Booster 3? Probably not. I've seen The Martian, and we know that the food packets liquefied due to the vibrations during the launch, and that caused the entire vehicle center of mass to shift, which caused a loss of the vehicle in The Martian. And so I don't think that cheese would have the structural properties that you would need to use it as a mass simulator. Thank you, Drive Through, Musical Wolves. Appreciate you.
Apologies for
And then,
coughing on the stream now. I thought I'd muted myself, but I missed the button.
I was just going to talk right over it. Like, you know
Yeah,
how it
good, yeah.
goes. And then Pim says, is SpaceX also working on other space stuff other than transport, like tech needed during travel, like washing clothes? We
Oh,
haven't seen anything like that. I think that goes way back to some of Elon's earlier comments at the big presentations he did, like the IAU, where he was talking about being the railroad or the trucking company and supporting other people that are solving some of those other problems. Didn't talk specifically about washing clothes, but I don't know that we've seen anything from SpaceX. We haven't even seen an official render of what the inside of the HLS ship would look like, much less something going to Mars. I guess we saw the violin player once was
yeah.
another render, but I don't think we've seen really any other technologies. Clearly, SpaceX has to be thinking about it or allocating mass or volume to things like life support that you would need on those missions. But right now, I mean, you want to talk about an oil rig? Elon's not thinking about oil rigs. You know, you want to talk about this, that, no, Elon is very much focused on getting the Starship Super Heavy system into orbit. That's like he's laser focused on getting these tests done. How's it going to stack? How's it going to fit? How's it going to light? Are they going to get it going to space without blowing up the pad? How are they going to catch it? That is his laser focus right now. And I think once he passes those gates, he'll move on to other, what's the life support look like, et cetera, right, Chris?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing, the one clue I've had that they've been working on the life support side of things for a long while now is that we heard that Paragon are working with them, and Paragon are the leaders in spaceflight for life support systems. I don't know if they've then advanced more internally because of the experience they've got with Crew Dragon, but I do know just from that clue years ago that they had that in mind from the very start. So I'm very confident they've got solutions we've just not seen yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So, y'all, I think this is where we are right now. Starship has entered the test site. We saw it roll all the way out from the production site to the test site up Highway 4 there, covered the whole thing, doing some commentary. But now, it may be that Starship is going to be parked here for a little while. Of course, we're going to keep watching it over on Starbase Live. We have that 24/7 stream, all of our cameras. We will have the views of Starship S20 over there. Mods, get a link into chat over there if you want to go and continue watching in Starbase Live. But in terms of our commentary, I think we've got through everything that we were looking to talk about here with Ship 20 rolling back out for future testing. Again, we think that it's going to end up at suborbital pad B over on the right-hand side of our shot here. There we go. We think it's going to end up at suborbital pad B for cryo testing. Is it going to stay there and do a static fire? Are the tiles going to pop off when they make this ship cold? Are the tiles going to pop off when they do a static fire? What if it's 3 engines? What if it's 1 engine? I think that SpaceX is still looking to get some actual ground truth experimental data on the systems that are going to be needed to launch this thing into orbit. But Chris, I think we covered everything now. We think we're good to go to send them back over to Starbase Live.
I think so.
All right. So that's going to be our plan here, folks. Again, you can keep watching. The cameras are not going to turn off. We're just going to turn off our live commentary here and head on over to that other stream, Starbase Live. It's our 24/7 stream. It is there all day and all night. It can be a place where you see what's going on. You can hear. You can just chat with other people. You can go there and ask questions, and people will be answering questions. I hang out there sometimes and just chat with people hanging out. But for now, we're going to go ahead and end our live commentary and send you over to Starbase Live. Again, you had Chris Gebhardt earlier on the stream. He popped through and answered some questions while it was rolling out, and then tagged into Chris Bergen here with us. Chris, thanks so much as always.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll let you get out of the cubby hole there and
Yeah.
get on back home, hopefully.
I'll take a picture one of these days and you'll all go, what? He's squeezed in now. How did he squeeze into that?
It's like a half-person conference room. It's a table
It
and a
is.
place to squat
It
down, right?
literally is, yeah. It's a voiceover room.
All right. So, folks, that is going to end our commentary. Again, Chris, thank you so much. Hey, out there in the field, We had that camera view from Mary. She rolled out to the test site so that we could see Starship approaching and turn into the gate there. Massive thanks as well to Mary, Boca Chica gal, not only doing the live streams, but also those daily videos, the clips and stuff like that, dedicated every single day to documenting the history that's unfolding before our eyes at Starbase. And then also, we've got Thomas Berghart. He is out there in Starbase for a couple days, and he's helping out with some robot stuff and taking some clips and photos and stuff like that as well. So the team out there, always critical to this sort of coverage. Make sure you don't forget them. For now, my name's John Galloway, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off the live commentary. See you over on Starbase Live, and we'll catch you nerds later. Thanks for hanging out with us, y'all.